Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Red Pill Garage. Does your Hyundai Veloster have a steering knock noise that's driving you mad? Well, on today's episode of Red Pill Garage, I'm going to teach you guys how to fix that problem once and for all. If you're a proud owner of a Hyundai Veloster, sooner or later you're going to come across this steering knock problem. They normally play up between 50 to 70,000 kilometers. And I'm going to show you guys how to rectify this problem. Your steering probably sounds something like this. By the end of this video, it's going to sound like this. Okay, the tools required for this job: an electric screwdriver, a torch, a mirror, side cutters, an air blower, trim removing tool, a couple of flat blade screwdrivers, an old towel, you'll need that for your knees, and we've got a multi-function cleaner that's going to rapidly removes carbon deposits, sludge, gum and varnish. And we're going to use that, we're going to spray that onto our brush. And there's our brush there. 3/8 drive ratchet, couple extension bars, 12mm socket, number 30 Torx bit, 14mm spanners, 12 and a 10 combination spanners, a 14 and 12 ratchet spanners, a zip tie, our steering flexible coupling to resolve our issue, and of course our safety glasses. Okay, the first thing you want to do is to disconnect the battery earth cable, and the reason for this is because I'll be disconnecting the wiring harness going to the clock spring, which is part of the airbag circuit. Now we don't want the airbag to deploy, and this is the reason for this. And what I like to do for a bit of added protection is cover up that post, or you can just throw a rag over it. Now the reason for this is because we'll be getting in and out of the car, and the movement of the car could dislodge that cable, and that cable could land back on the battery post, causing the airbag to deploy. Okay, next you want to partially remove the weather seal from the A-pillar, and then remove the side panel off the dash just with a flat blade screwdriver. And then we can access the screws 1, 2 and 3. Okay, once all 3 screws have been removed, just place the screws in the door pocket. So this way they're out of the way and they won't go missing. Okay, we've got one more screw until we remove our knee panel. Next, the fuse cover. And there's our diagnostic plug. We've got to remove that. Okay, that knee cover should just snap out of place, and just keep in mind there's a total of 3 electrical plugs to disconnect. That's the first one and the second one. Now just keep in mind that knee cover is still held in place with a locating lug. All you need to do is just pry that back with a flat blade screwdriver and it should just pop off. Just make sure you don't go pulling on it, because you will break that lug straight off. Okay, our third and final plug is our diagnostic plug, and all you need to release that is to push those locking lugs in. There's one on either side and they should just pop off. Just like that. And there you go, the knee cover's out of the car now. Okay, next I have to remove the upper and lower steering column shrouds, and there's 3 screws that hold them in. Now you've got to turn the steering at 90 degrees to get to it on one side, and there's another one on the other side. So we'll do this one here first. Then we turn the steering wheel the other way. That's our second one. And don't forget to put those screws in the door pocket so they don't go missing. Okay, now that our second screw is removed, our third and final one's underneath. Okay, next you need your flat blade screwdriver. Stick that underneath the blinker switch and pull down on the cover. And it should pop off, just like that. Now, there's a couple of things to remember here. You've got some locating lugs, and they're really important to remember when putting these back together, because it needs to line back up. If you don't line those locating lugs together, there'll be a gap between the seams, and you'll just be wrestling with it trying to work out why it won't go back together. Okay, next we have to remove our motor driven power steering controller, or simply put, our power steering computer, or ECU. And next we have to remove all the electrical plugs. There's a total of 5. That's 3rd, 4th and 5th. Okay, next with our trim remover tool, we have to pry away one more harness. And there we go, just pop that one off. And next is the plug. And we have 2 12mm bolts that we need to unbolt to release that motor driven power steering controller. That one in the back might be a little bit difficult to get out, but just take your time and you'll get it out. That's the front one. And there we have it. One motor driven power steering controller. That's all it is. Now just make sure you don't drop it. It's best to just sit it on the passenger seat out of the way, and this way it'll be kept safe. Okay, next we have to remove that bolt there that's holding up the rear part of the steering column. Now unfortunately, this part of the job you will have to get onto your back, and it is a bit of a tight squeeze getting in there. Okay, I finally got that bolt out. Unfortunately, I didn't have any room in there to video record. It was just such a tight squeeze, fair dinkum. Anyhow, that's what the bolt looks like. Now when you crack it loose, you should be able to turn it by hand, and that'll be a lot easier to get out that way. Okay, next we have 2 nuts left holding up the steering column. That's one there, and the second one's over the other side. Now with the first one, you can crack that loose, but don't fully remove it just yet, because we still have some more wiring plugs to remove. And the second one, you can fully remove that out of the way. Okay, now that the second nut has been removed, it's now time to remove the electrical plugs. That yellow plug you see there, that's the clock spring, which is part of the airbag circuit, and that's the wiper switch plug. Then you can remove the first nut I pointed out to, and then just gently lower the steering column down. Mate, you're probably thinking, what a dog's breakfast, look at all those wires hanging around everywhere. But don't worry, each plug has its own place and you can't get them mixed up. Okay, just gently move the steering column off the seat down towards the seal panel, and be careful not to break the blinker or wiper switches. Okay, there's our electric steering motor, and now you'll need your number 30 Torx bit to unscrew the 3 Torx bolts. That's 1, 2, and the third one's in the back. And once you've done that, there's one more wiring harness to disconnect. This way you can totally separate the electric motor off the steering column itself. Okay, last bolt's out. Now would you look at that mess in there? That flexible coupling is absolutely cactus. There's nothing left of it whatsoever. It's totally disintegrated. Wow, that's all sticky in there. So is that. They're all dry pieces there. It's going to take a bit of effort to clean that crud. Just give it a gentle blow with some compressed air. If not, you can use the brush to brush it out. And we're going to use the multifunction cleaner to spray on the brush to gently remove all that crud that's there. And the one on the left is what's left of the old one, and that's what it's supposed to look like, and that's the new one. And that's going to go in once we clean it all up. Okay, with a flat blade screwdriver, you want to scrape off as much of those broken pieces as you can, so we can spray the multi-purpose cleaner onto the brush to remove all the smaller bits out of there. But don't spray the multi-purpose cleaner on the electric motor. It's got to be on the brush. Getting these two components clean is absolutely critical, because if there's any leftover flexible coupling still left in there, it's actually going to create friction with the new flexible coupling, causing premature wear. And you don't want to do this job all over again prematurely. In goes the flexible coupling. And on goes the electric motor and the 3 Torx bolts. Okay, this next process is definitely hard yakka. Trying getting that steering column up there is not easy. You want to mount the 2 nuts at the front of the column first, then mount the bolt at the back. Now you may need somebody to help you hold that steering wheel up while you're trying to get those things into place first. Don't forget to re-secure the electric motor wiring harness just there. Just push it back in. Okay, now it's time to refit our motor driven power steering controller. And reroute the wiring harness. And you only need 1 zip tie to zip tie that harness back in place. And then you can start plugging in all the electrical plugs. Now just make sure when plugging in the electrical plugs, you hear them snap into place. You hear a little click noise as you're pushing them in. That means they're locked. Just like that. And that's what you want to hear. You'll hear this one as well. There you go. And then secondary lock. That should snap into place. Now you know it's locked in. That secondary locking clip means that plug's really important. If something was to go wrong and that wasn't plugged in all the way, or that came out, there's a good probability you could get into a car accident where the steering would fail. So that's why they've added that secondary lock to that plug. And don't forget the locating lugs on the steering shroud. You want to make sure that's a perfect fit with the upper shroud. There's the upper part. It's got a slot into that. See across that seam there? There's no gap. It's a perfect fit. That means you know you've got those locating lugs in the right spot. Next are the 3 screws for the steering shroud. The bottom one goes in first, and then the 2 side ones. Okay, next we've got to refit our knee panel. There's our locating lug. We have to make sure that slots in the kick panel perfectly, otherwise the knee panel won't sit flush with the dash. That's where it's got to slot into. In goes our diagnostic plug. 1 out of 3. Then the other 2 plugs should just snap into place, and you'll hear them click into place. Bottom screw. Next are the 3 side screws. The fuse panel. The side cover, and that just snaps into place. And the weather seal. Now that might be a bit tricky to put back on, so you really have to make sure that's on there properly. And you want to double check it, otherwise you'll get rainwater in the car. And last but not least, reconnect our earth cable back to the battery. And finally, the moment of truth. And we have success. No more steering knocking noise. I hope you guys found this video helpful and giving you the confidence on taking a job like this on. Perhaps re-watching the video as you're doing the job as a step-by-step guide. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button not to miss out on any future videos. And I'll see you in the next episode of Red Pill Garage. Thank you for watching.